Let me take this out. Kunle, are you ready to join me?
Yes, most definitely. Most definitely. Hi, Derek. Good morning.
Hey,
Good morning.
awesome. Good morning. Great to have you here with us. Really looking forward to your session. I'm going to add your screen up here.
No
I'm
pressure.
just going to let you take it away.
All right. Thank you so much. You should be able to see my screen. It's so you probably tuned in to this session having the title below in mind, which is Scaling Social Commerce with a Social Native Mindset. Well, I sort of spun it a little bit because of some content I discovered just last week, and the new title is just Be Entertained, and being entertained is really the social media or social native, shall I say, mindset. So that is what this presentation is all about. Now, for those who don't know me, I think I'm most known for my podcast, 2x eCommerce. We have to date recorded 330 plus episodes. I have interviewed close to 250 founders, experts, in the industry. And to date, we've had 1 million plus downloads. If you haven't already, go check 2x eCommerce. That's number 2x eCommerce. I'm also a trainer, speaker across various platforms. The one particular one I'm most proud of is I'm part of the Facebook Journalism Project, where I talk all things e-commerce, to that group of people. I'm an advisor to a handful of businesses, and I just recently started acquiring e-commerce businesses myself. That's me, and welcome to my presentation. Right, so what are we going to hear today? We're going to spend a lot of time going through the anatomy of a social native brand. I have actually 2 brands, but I'm going to talk about 3, 2 on slides and 1 off slide, just to give you some perspective. Then I would briefly talk about influencer generated content versus user generated content. Should there even be a versus, in there? Influencers and creators, TikTok creatives, what you should start looking for, and performance marketing. I'll brush a bit on my experience, my personal experience with some of the companies I work with, and what is working from an influencer generated perspective and UGC perspective. So let's go. Now, this is what actually changed my my headline, the subject of this talk, and it was a video put up by Adam Mosseri. He's the head of Instagram at Facebook, and he was like, videos are driving an immense amount of growth online for all the major platforms right now, and it is one that I think we need to lean into more. We're no longer a photo sharing app. People are looking to Instagram to be entertained. So they're changing their entire strategy, or most of their strategy there at Instagram, which is Facebook's leading social app as we speak. Forget the numbers Facebook generates, but Instagram is where the growth is at. And Mark Zuckerberg just yesterday said they're investing $1 billion into a reward system for creators. So Facebook is focusing largely on creators right now. And a mate of mine, Dennis, actually went on a Facebook Live, was it this morning or yesterday? And he made $246 from live streaming crap, essentially. So there's a lot of opportunity, in his words, not mine. That's what he said. So there's a lot of opportunity right now for creators. Now, the audience here, you're probably brands, your e-commerce brands, and you're thinking, how can we leverage this potential opportunity? Well, this is what Facebook is, trying to do. Essentially, it's supporting creators, right? Because creators generate videos. Most of those videos you're going to be seeing now will be full screen, 9:16 videos, full on videos. They're trying to take talent essentially from TikTok onto Facebook via Reels and several other formats. But their focus is, let's get creators to make more content, which primarily will be videos. And then we have us e-commerce brands They're also focusing on shopping. Shopping was a very, very major announcement in Adam's video. You can shop now on Instagram. It's becoming a shopping destination. The experience would be limited. I would think some products would lend themselves quite well on Instagram shopping, but that's the offer for e-commerce. And then, messaging is going to be their offer to their users. So it becomes a very sticky platform. And, Gen Z users, as the next slide would indicate, are their target, because most Gen Zs, are hanging out more on TikTok at the moment. And they are going to be the active essential purchasers in the next 5 to 10 years. So this is more a long-term play, just because Facebook and Instagram have seen I wouldn't really say the decline of Facebook, but the demographic shift. So, folks like me that used Facebook back in 2006 and 7 probably still stick to Facebook now, but the likelihood of, people born in 1995 or 2000 looking to use Facebook is lower than, my investment, all the content, all the contacts I have on Facebook. Connections are changing. Right now, TikTok is the place to be entertained, essentially. So this is a very heavyweight slide, and I'm going to break it down for you. I'm going to spend a lot of time on this slide. On the one hand, you have millennials who were born in 1981 to 1996. They're 25 to the age of 40. On the other hand, you have Gen Z or Gen Zs, because most of you are in the US, Gen Z, who are from age 6 to 24. My son is actually in that group. And you will find that if you look at like Facebook, for instance, the 18 to 44 age group is just 59%. Let's put it at 60% across the world. For the 13, which is a smaller cohort, to 34, so this covers millennials and Gen Zs, that constitutes 70% of Instagram users right now. If you look at TikTok, the 13 to 34 is 75%. Facebook is trying to close that gap, essentially. And I don't think anybody gives YouTube the credit it deserves, but YouTube is, in my opinion, the biggest platform in the world, social platform in the world. And here is why. I have a 10-year-old, right? A 10-year-old son who, when he was 2, knew YouTube. Now, the social networks, I don't know why, they don't broadcast or they don't really share numbers on children's consumption of their platform. But YouTube is the only platform that captures children, so captures users from as early as 2 years old due to the proliferation of, smart TVs, tablets, and phones, essentially. So YouTube is somewhere you should really pay attention to, right? The 13 to 34 demographic is similar to Instagram, essentially. It is 70%. And they're not even sharing the 2 to 12-year-olds. The first sort of brand, the first set of brands my children, aware of were, well, the digital brands that is, are YouTube and then Amazon, right? Because Amazon now is on our screens. It's an app, essentially. It took my son when he was like 9 to figure out, what TikTok was. And so, YouTube in itself is massive. It's got 2 billion active users, monthly active users globally, and almost 200 million in the States, out of a population of 328 million, and 36 million. So over half the population in the UK use YouTube, or active users on YouTube. So it is massive. And there is a potential, I personally have a client I'm going to show you that launched their 10 million plus business basically on YouTube, and they're going well. They use YouTube as a retention, content retention, play in what they do. So essentially you need to look at or define your brand. Is my brand a millennial brand? Is my brand a Gen Z brand? Is my brand a millennial and Gen Z brand? I'll give you an example. A business we're about to acquire, they're a cosmetics business. I can't really give you the details. And we were looking at their Facebook account, and we realized this is before the iOS issue, because right now on Facebook advertising, you're not allowed to. Facebook, basically, Apple has prevented Facebook from reporting age and demographic detail when you're looking at your Facebook ads. But when we look at the performance prior to that update, the ATT iOS update, we realized that as much as they were targeting younger people who were spending on their cosmetic brand were between the age of 25 and 34. What does that tell me? It tells me that I should spend a lot of my time on Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat. But if you neglect YouTube for demos, right, for demo videos, especially for unboxing experiences, you are leaving a lot of money, a lot of attention, rather. Let's not even talk about money here. You're leaving a lot of attention on the table. So the reason I put YouTube there is it should be the center of most brand strategies. You need to think really natively about YouTube, and you need to work either, if you don't have the ability to create content on YouTube, you really need to work on influencer generated content on YouTube, which gets expensive because the production cost on YouTube is much higher than a TikTok. It takes, for you to create a quality YouTube video, it takes more effort. And so creators on YouTube tend to charge. So you need to think about a longer term strategy with your YouTube to see, okay, do we have a studio? Do we, start creating content, or do we even hire, creator on a long-term basis to start creating content on our behalf? Because those dividends from YouTube pay off long term, and it becomes an asset even if you want to sell your business. I think I've waffled enough on this slide. I wish this was like a Q&A. I just want to pick up on some other things, to really look at. If you look at the 13 to 17-year-olds, that they're in the next 5 years, they're going to be, consumers, essentially proper consumers. And so if you look at the 13 to 17-year-old in Facebook, they're only 3%. Compare that to YouTube, 15%. Compare that to Instagram, 15%. Then TikTok, 10 to 19. They do their demographics a bit funny. It's 32%. So this is why Instagram is scared, I would say, and so they want to just buckle up by closing this gap because it is widening essentially. Another thing about TikTok is just the age. The 30 to 39 demographic is a chunky 16%. Because when you go to TikTok, it's a time suck, and not a time suck in a negative way. It's a time suck in an entertaining way. There's always content, just ready for you. And, you as brands need to think, how can we get into those conversations? How can we get into, those stories, on TikTok, on Rails, longer term. Right. So I just sort of wanted to highlight that 13 to 34 age group. I tried to chunk the largest age group. And if you look at Facebook, the largest age group in Facebook is the 18 to 44s, which is just 60%. But for Instagram, 70% 13 to 34. For YouTube, it's 70% 13 to 34. Folks, you have to focus on a coherent YouTube strategy. Really very, very important. It's often missed, but it's a huge opportunity. And then for Snapchat is 75%, but Snapchat doesn't necessarily have the scale, the speed to scale as TikTok has. You look at the numbers of Snapchat. Snapchat has been around for several years, close to 8 years, I think. Don't quote me on that, but 93 million, in the US. But TikTok has been around for 4 years, 100 million. The faster, more dynamic company, essentially. Their growth in the UK hasn't been as significant. Just about 13 million active users. The last time numbers were generated, this is like 2019. But for the UK in Snapchat, 21 million. So really think about where you want to play. But I think your anchor play, just being contrarian here, should be YouTube. Right? Why should we pay more attention to TikTok? Well, just look at the time spent. Time spent on this graph doesn't show you the time spent on YouTube. The time spent on YouTube is close to the 40s, right? Obviously, because a lot of its users, and this is for Gen Z, for the Gen Zs or Gen Z, they're spending 40-50 minutes on YouTube. They're spending about 23 minutes on TikTok. On Facebook, this graph here on the left is just general usage. So Facebook, 16%. They're doing a good job at Facebook in terms of what their 2019 numbers were compared to what their 2020 numbers are. Yeah, so they're doing a good job. But you just look at that jump on TikTok, because they're having more creators. There's more content to keep people on the platform. And Instagram did not grow that much in terms of time spent from 2019 to 2020, and they're trying to double that up because it is an issue. It's an issue essentially. That's not to say there is not opportunity on Instagram, as I would show you a recent brand that pretty much was an Instagram native brand. They went from 0 to 50 million in US to $50 million in revenue profitably in less than 2 years. Essentially, I'll show you that later. But this I shared on our Facebook group. You can get to our Facebook group via the website. It's just join the community, 2xecommerce.com. The social media ranked by numbers of users and active months. So look at Instagram and TikTok. They're head to head essentially. And Instagram was really meant to sort of take on the baton, demographic baton from where Facebook took off. But Instagram needs to sort of buckle up. Right. The anatomy of social native brands. I'm going to talk about Gymshark now. I'm going to give you a brief history, and there'll be some takeaways for you, for your brand. Just take this away. So Gymshark was founded in 2012. So between 2012 and 2014, they didn't really know what they were doing, but they were doing something really good. First things first, in 2013, their revenues was about 500,000 pounds. So this is pounds. That would be about 750 US, $1,000. In 2014, that jumped up to 5.8 million, pounds, which would have been about $7 million or so. How did this happen? Well, they started out with mass influencer seeding. They didn't know, there was no term like that, what's called like mass influencer seeding. What is mass influencer seeding? It's pretty much giving stuff for free in a systemic way, whereby, okay, you're receiving 100,000 units of stock, and you say, okay, 5% of that is going into marketing because we're giving samples. We want to just start giving people samples with hopefully something in return. But we're not putting our hopes out. We know, we're aware of the law of numbers. If they really like the experience, they're going to share the experience with their followers. So let's do that. But they were very specific. So the founder, Ben Francis, had done his research. He'd been watching YouTube. He'd been watching YouTube, right? He's been watching YouTube a lot, looking at all these bodybuilders. He was into the community. He was into the bodybuilding community, so he knew who to give his products to. So they sent free Gymshark apparel, in the hope that somebody will wear it, and promote their product on social media, right? Well, it worked. Why? Because when they realized the direct impact on a share, right, on someone wearing a Gymshark item, on an influencer, potential influencer, a YouTube creator wearing a Gymshark outfit in a training session for 30 minutes. So basically, their audience is looking at somebody they adore for 30 minutes in a 30-minute YouTube video, or a 20-minute YouTube video, or a 15-minute YouTube video, wearing a shirt, a stringer, or a pair of trousers, that has the tag Gymshark on it. The impact was phenomenal. As in, they were just looking at the relationship, they're like, okay, we're onto something here. So let us get 18 of the best. Since we've experimented across the board, we've seen these 18 people have a certain sphere of influence that, when they post, their dividends, both short-term and long-term, we're going to do some deals with you, okay? And so they were able to sponsor about 18 influencers with a combined following of about 20 million, right, in the US, in all markets, including the US. And after that, they made it official and called it the brand, I think it was Gymshark Athletes, kind of like, like the Avengers. So they got them because they realized that they had a following, they had a following. So Gymshark Athletes began, and those two actions, these three actions, led them to grow from 500,000 to £6 million in revenue. That's over 10x over a year. So from 2013 to 2014, end of 2014 financial year, over 2 years, sorry, they were able to rapidly grow. It didn't stop there. They then selected, there's this lady, Nikki Blacketter, I think. She was the face. She was one of the influencers, and they actually created a line, a clothing line for her. They were active in events, and I'll tell you a few things about Ben, a bit later. So in 2016, they decided to take things a notch up. They started to do meetup expos. So they stopped doing attending the big expos. Oh no, they actually were doing expos, but they were now creating experiences, in-person experiences, trying to bridge, the social with offline. So what they're doing is that they're saying, okay, you're our athletes, come over to our events, right? When you come over to our events, all your followers who want to kind of meet you in Sydney have the opportunity to meet, their superheroes. And guess what? They're all Gymshark. And so they were just essentially harvesting off every audience, in this sub niche. And it worked. So they were bringing in social to real life. And that, sort of doubled their business again. So 6 million to about 9 million in revenue in 2015. And then from 9 million to about 17 million pounds in revenue in 2016. It didn't stop there. They then went to set up pop-up shops. They're not investing in retail, retail locations, which was quite clever given the fact that COVID was around the corner. So they started creating, pop-up shops, and the pop-up shops were linked to lines related to the athletes. So they're creating a movement, essentially, a proper movement, all via this DNA of social. And you find that most creators on YouTube will have a presence on Instagram, and the presence would be just as significant, right? So in 2018, the revenues then jumped up to, 2017, the revenues more than, almost tripled to 52 million, pounds. 2018, they kept the momentum going. This formula was now sort of scaling up, with paid advertising and the like, with whitelisting. If you don't know what whitelisting is, it's using influencers you work with, their ad accounts, and just promoting, because most of them would have creator or business ad accounts, so you could sort of advertise through them. And so they were getting all the data from prior work with them and doubling down. And from 2019, there were 176 million. In 2020, I think they were close to 220 million. My slide is a bit wrong there. It's 103 there, but it's 220 million they grew in 2020. Not only that, there are a few things you should know about the brand beyond, their marketing, their social marketing campaigns, which you should bear in mind. The first is in 2015, they had a Black Friday gaffe. They were not running Shopify at the time. They were on WooCommerce or Magento, and their site crashed. Ben Francis hand wrote 2,500 apology letters over Christmas to unhappy customers. That is community. That is what strengthens community. He didn't do it because he thought that he was trying to build 100 million business. He built it because he genuinely cared. He knew that he was in a social space and his reputation mattered. Gymshark's reputation, and he hand wrote 2,500. So what I'm trying to say is a social native brand is empathetic. You should have empathy, and it should start from the founder down to the entire organization. And that's how you treat customers well. The next thing was fundraising. So over COVID, I don't know if you know about the NHS. So in the UK, we don't pay for healthcare. Essentially, it's run by the National Health Service, and they were the heroes of COVID, of the pandemic. And Gymshark, led by Ben Francis, raised £180,000, which is about $250,000 US. So and he used a hashtag NHS sweaty selfie. So it was not, egotistic that, it should be Gymshark loves, there's no Gymshark in the hashtag. And people love, Gymshark, and they're millennial and Gen Z brand. They're largely millennial, really, when you think about it. And then they were able to rebrand Black Friday. I think they called it the blackout event. So it's really taking ownership, really. And the founder, his profile is, he has 200,000. He tells stories, essentially. He tells stories. Not happy. You must have come across, some stories from Ben Francis. 200,000 YouTube, subscribers, 350, followers on Instagram. So in my opinion, this is the DNA of a social native brand. Another one is Glamnetic. I talked about it in my previous presentation. They are the one that grew from 0 to 50 million in revenue in 2 years. And they're pretty much an Instagram and YouTube brand. They do a bit of Snapchat, but really the core is, she started this out on Instagram. And when you go into YouTube, the number of reviews and videos and unboxing and application videos are mind-boggling in terms of this brand. So what happened? So 2019, very early, revenue month one was 20K. How did she do it? So she's a very clever lady. She realized that the lashes industry was broken, in the sense that they had like sticky on lashes at the time. The magnets didn't quite work well, and she'd done like a course on supply chain management and Udemy and some other platforms. And when she realized that she could potentially get suppliers to make lashes she thought she could work, so she worked on the technology. Really, she was able to get really nice lashes. That's so the story goes anyway. And she was building out a social media platform, essentially a social media presence for Glamnetics. At the time, I did check out their post from 2019, and she got a good proprietary product, essentially, which was better than anything in the market. So she brought it in, but when she brought product, this is where product meets audience, right? So that's another concept you should sort of bear in mind, where how does my product actually connect to the audience? She was able to do a pre-launch. So what did a pre-launch look like? She built out the account. She got the account Glamnetics on Instagram without any product, and she was just posting memes, tutorials, and she was able to grow that particular account of Glamnetics before any product was there. She was teasing the product to 30,000 followers. This was in August 2019. By the end of 2019, they're doing 1 million, right? From about the 30,000 base, they're doing 1 million in revenue. And for the first day of sale, she pretty much, sold out, and it sold out several times over in 2019. Anyway, so she goes out. She's freelancing, just freelancing around, because she had to, as a micro influencer, and then she met a co-founder. I think it's at a photo shoot, because she was freelancing for e-commerce brands, essentially, trying to figure out, how do e-commerce brands actually produce content, because she was running out of money, essentially. And then she met a co-founder who was more an e-commerce operator and media buying, expert and guru in the real sense of it. And that's where things started to really scale up. I just want to say that in 2019, all through 2019 and to date, she's been the face of the brand. That's her there. That video, that second image there is of her, one of the very first videos of her just showing how Glamnetics actually work. She'd been the face of the brand. She didn't know about, she wasn't equipped with, influencer seeding at the time, and she was the face of the brand. She just worked her ass out, just trying to, be the face of the brand via Instagram, essentially.
Kunle, really quick, we're running low on time. I just want to make sure that I want to give you a couple extra minutes, but we've got to move into the next session in about 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so with social ads and influencers, she was able to scale, the business to 50 million in revenue. So essentially, there was a lot of product growth, and so in 2021, they were able to add about 52 SKUs in. Okay, so what do YouTube first brands look like? This is Dip Your Car. I work with them. The 10 million plus, niche business, and essentially, what they do is they put tutorials out, on YouTube about, how to change the color of your car, and that in itself creates retention. This is another one. They are just 2 years old. First year, they did $1 million in sales. They're selling brushes and makeup. And then in year two, they're $1 million in profits. This is Teach Haney. We had him on the podcast. What they did was quite unique. They had Alpha M, which they hired a YouTube influencer to run their channel, essentially. And they've grown to 20 million plus in about 4 or 5 years. In business, and they're using YouTube first. So this is what the old model really looks like, or I wouldn't really say an old model. I'll just say a lot of us use paid acquisition first, and then we head over to content creators to try and create content for us, or we try and create content, move into retention, and then we do word of mouth marketing. Well, what a social what a social first social native business does is they create content. The content creates a strong community, and then they scale with social ads and move on with retention, essentially. I'm going to sort of close this off because we do not have sufficient time. I just want to say that leveraging IGC content for paid social, you need to use like highly engaged IGC content in your paid ads. Just enhance these posts with ads with captions, subtitles and branding, and then create an influencer seeding, system that essentially, churns out, content which you're able to test for performance marketing. Your North Star for all of your performance really should be, your CTR. And essentially, YouTube should be an anchor for, showcasing your product, unboxing experience. Derek, I'm going to have to just end this, presentation. I don't think there's sufficient time to finish, but thank you for having me on. Yeah, of course. Kunle, I'm so sorry to cut you short because this was gold. I especially love hearing about those success stories of digitally native vertical brands. So we're absolutely going to have you back. We'll continue the conversation on user-generated content and influencer content, as well as hopefully hear a few more stories from you about merchants and the platform. By the way, I was the numbers that you've got there and the case you made for YouTube, I really enjoyed.
Cheers. Okay, thank you so much, Eric. Cheers.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. I'm sure we'll see you again. And really quick, if you've got it maybe on the last slide or something, how can people get in touch with you if they want to talk growth strategy with you?
Really just hook me up on Calendly, just Calendly Kunle, and you find me.
Perfect. Awesome. We'll plug that in chat in just a second here. Thank you so much, Kunle.
A pleasure. A pleasure. Thank you, Derek, for having me.